Imagine you're sitting alone in a quiet room, scrolling through your phone. It's a familiar ritual, a moment of silence in a busy day. A video appears, a sun-drenched kitchen, a ceramic mug filled with perfectly brewed coffee, a person with a serene expression looking out at a dew-kissed garden. A moment ago, you were perfectly content. Now, a strange and powerful ache blooms in your chest. It is a feeling of lack. It is a sudden, sharp, and undeniable desire. It's not just for the coffee or the garden. It is a desire for the feeling, the peace, the simplicity, the aesthetic perfection of that single, curated moment. You scroll on. An advertisement for a minimalist watch, promising not just to tell time, but to declutter your life. A travel influencer's photo from a remote, unspoiled beach you had never heard of, the caption speaking of finding oneself. A friend's post announcing a promotion, a new apartment, a perfect-looking relationship. With each swipe, the feeling of lack deepens. The quiet room no longer feels peaceful. It feels empty. Your own life, which seemed perfectly adequate just minutes ago, now feels cluttered, chaotic, and fundamentally deficient. This experience is so common, so deeply woven into the fabric of our daily lives that we barely notice it. But stop for a moment and ask the truly terrifying question, where did that desire come from? It felt so personal, so intimate. It felt like it erupted spontaneously from the core of your being. It felt like you. But did it? Did you wake up this morning with an innate biological need for a minimalist watch? Was a desire for that specific, Instagrammable travel destination encoded in your DNA? When did the abstract concept of success begin to look exactly like that corner office, that specific brand of car, that particular kind of urban lifestyle? We fiercely guard the belief that our desires are our own. We believe we are the sovereign rulers of our inner worlds, that the wanting self is the authentic self. But this is the most profound and elegant illusion of the modern age. We are not the masters of our desires. We are their conduits. We are living inside an invisible architecture, a vast and intricate factory that operates 24 hours a day. Its sole purpose is not to build cars or phones, but to manufacture the most valuable commodity of all, human desire. This factory doesn't just show you an advertisement for a product, it creates the feeling of emptiness that the product promises to fill. It doesn't just sell you a lifestyle, it first makes you feel insecure and dissatisfied with your own. It pathologizes your normal human imperfections, your aging skin, your fluctuating moods, your messy, uncurated life, and then sells you the cure. This goes far beyond simple consumerism. The factory produces not just our desire for things, but our desire for selves. It presents us with a catalog of pre-approved identities: the driven entrepreneur, the spiritual yogi, the world traveler, the eco-conscious minimalist. We scroll through these identities like we scroll through a streaming service, pick one that resonates, and then begin to consume the products, experiences, and belief systems necessary to perform it. We mistake this assembly of a prefabricated self for the authentic act of self-creation. The great unsettling paradox is that the more we are told we can be anything, the more we all seem to want the same few things. We run a race we did not choose, towards a finish line we did not set, fueled by a hunger we did not create. So, if the voice in your head whispering, "You are not enough," is not your own, whose is it? What are the invisible mechanisms of this factory? What are the psychological and societal blueprints it uses to construct our most intimate feelings? And is it even possible to unplug from this machine? Can you ever truly know if a desire is authentically yours, or if it is merely the echo of a signal broadcast so powerfully and for so long that you have mistaken it for your own heartbeat? The desire factory is not a shadowy conspiracy run by a secret cabal. It is something far more powerful, a system that has emerged from a deep and almost universally unexamined truth about human nature. The hidden problem is not that we are being manipulated, but that we are, by our design, manipulable. The architects of this system simply discovered the blueprint of our own souls and learned how to build a prison from it. The foundational secret is this: we do not know what we want. We learn to want by watching others. This is the core of the philosopher René Girard's theory of mimetic desire. Girard argued that human desire is not a straight line between a subject, you, and an object, the thing you want. It is a triangle. There is you, the subject, the object of desire, and, most importantly, the mediator, another person or group who already desires the object. The object is not desirable in itself. It becomes desirable because the mediator's desire for it confers a special, almost sacred value upon it. We learn what to want by imitating the desires of others. Think of two children in a room full of toys. One child ignores 100 toys to pick up a single red block. Suddenly, for the other child, that red block becomes the most valuable, most desirable object in the universe. The second child does not just want the block, they want to occupy the state of being of the first child, the state of being the one who possesses the desirable thing. This is the fundamental engine of human motivation, from the playground to the geopolitical stage. We don't just want the car, we want the perceived status of the person who drives it. We don't just want the promotion, we want the approval and envy of our peers that comes with it. We are creatures of imitation, and the factory of modern society is at its core a perfectly engineered mimetic machine. Social media is this machine's ultimate expression. It is a global, 24/7, high-fidelity broadcast of what other people, our chosen mediators, desire. The influencer holding the green smoothie is not just selling a drink. They are mediating a desire for a life of health, serenity, and beauty. Your friend posting their marathon finish is mediating a desire for discipline, achievement, and public validation. The algorithm, in its cold genius, studies your mimetic patterns and feeds you an endless, personalized stream of mediators, each one a perfect mirror of your insecurities and a perfect blueprint for a new desire.
This innate mimetic tendency is then weaponized by a vast cultural and economic apparatus. The thinkers of the Frankfurt School, like Theodor Adorno and Herbert Marcuse, called this the culture industry. They argued that the primary function of mass media, movies, music, advertising, is to create false needs. These are needs that the system itself creates in order to sell you the solution, keeping you in a perpetual cycle of consumption and dissatisfaction. The culture industry constantly generates images of a good life that is always just out of reach, a happiness that can be purchased with the next product, the next experience, the next upgrade. It creates a low-grade chronic anxiety about your own life, a feeling of being left behind, which can only be temporarily soothed by participating in the system, by buying the ticket, downloading the app, and consuming the product. This keeps you docile, distracted, and, most importantly, productive. You work a job you may not love to earn the money to buy the things you have been taught to want. On a deeper, more philosophical level, Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari saw society as a network of desiring machines. For them, desire is a natural, chaotic, and creative force, a flow. The social machine, capitalism, the state, the family, works by capturing this raw, untamed flow and plugging it into its own circuits. Your innate desire for connection is captured and rerouted into engaging with a brand. Your desire for self-expression is channeled into curating a personal brand on social media. The factory doesn't just create desire from scratch. It hijacks your own life force and diverts it towards its own ends. This entire process was given its modern, practical blueprint by figures like Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud and the father of public relations. Bernays was the first to realize that you could sell products more effectively by targeting people's unconscious, irrational drives. He understood that you don't sell a car by talking about its technical specifications. You sell it by linking it to a man's unconscious desire for power, freedom, and sexual potency. His most famous campaign, Torches of Freedom, convinced women to smoke cigarettes, once a taboo, by framing them as a symbol of feminist rebellion and liberation. He didn't sell a product, he sold an identity. He manufactured a desire. The hidden problem, then, is a perfect storm. Our innate psychological wiring has been hijacked by a sophisticated cultural apparatus, the culture industry, that is powered by a cynical psychological playbook, Freudian marketing. We are living inside a dream that we did not author, a dream designed to keep us wanting, working, and consuming. The factory is not just around us, it is inside us. It has colonized our most intimate spaces, shaping the very structure of our wanting. And the unseen consequences of living as a puppet in this grand theater of manufactured desire are not just economic, they are spiritual, leading to a profound sense of alienation from our work, our world, and ultimately from our own selves. Living as a cog in the desire factory doesn't just empty your wallet, it hollows out your soul. The consequences of having your desires manufactured for you are subtle, pervasive, and ultimately devastating. They create a life that is perpetually out of focus, a constant low-grade hum of dissatisfaction that you can never quite name because you have been taught to believe the noise is coming from inside you. The first and most immediate consequence is the hedonic treadmill. You are caught in a relentless, exhausting cycle of want, acquisition, and fleeting satisfaction. The moment you finally obtain the object of your desire, the new phone, the promotion, the perfect relationship, you experience a brief high, a momentary quieting of the manufactured lack. But almost immediately, the machine presents a new mediator, a new object, a new ideal. The goalposts shift. Your new phone is suddenly eclipsed by the next model. Your promotion only reveals the next rung on the ladder you are now expected to climb. Your perfect relationship is measured against an ever-changing, impossibly curated romantic ideal. You are running as fast as you can simply to stay in the same place emotionally. This isn't an accident. It is the factory's core design feature. A truly satisfied customer is a threat to the system. The goal is not to fulfill your desire, but to sustain it, to keep you perpetually in a state of aspirational anxiety, always reaching for a horizon that recedes as you approach it. This leads to the second, deeper consequence, a profound alienation from your own life. When your desires are not your own, the life you build in service of them will never feel like it belongs to you. You become a stranger in your own home, surrounded by objects you were told to want. You perform a version of happiness at brunch, on vacation, in your social media posts that you have learned to associate with a fulfilling life. But the feeling itself remains elusive. This is the source of the modern imposter syndrome, a feeling that extends far beyond the workplace. We feel like imposters in our own lives because, in a very real sense, we are. We are actors playing a role written by the culture industry, speaking lines crafted by advertisers, all for an audience of other actors doing the same. The result is a quiet, pervasive loneliness, the loneliness of being surrounded by things you do not truly want and people who do not truly see you because you have not yet truly seen yourself. The third consequence is the death of authentic self-knowledge. If you are constantly being told what to want, you never have the chance to discover what you actually want. The journey of self-discovery, which requires silence, introspection, and the difficult work of listening to the quiet, subtle signals of your own soul, becomes impossible. The factory is too loud. Before a genuine, internally generated desire can even surface, it is drowned out by the roar of 1,000 mediated wants. You lose the ability to distinguish between the voice of your own intuition and the voice of the algorithm. You outsource your identity. You look to personality tests, to horoscopes, to consumer choices. What does my brand of coffee say about me? To tell you who you are. The difficult, open-ended question, who am I and what do I value, is replaced by the much simpler, multiple-choice question, which of these pre-approved lifestyle packages would I like to subscribe to?
Ultimately, this leads to a state of spiritual and moral exhaustion. Constantly chasing desires that are not your own is a form of psychic labor. It is draining, and it leaves no energy for the things that might genuinely nourish the soul.
The great philosophical questions: what is a good life? What is my duty to others? How do I face my own mortality? Are pushed to the margins. They are too complex, too demanding, and most importantly, they cannot be solved with a purchase. The factory has no product to sell you that will answer these questions. In fact, these questions are a threat to the factory's existence. Because a person who is genuinely engaged in the project of building a meaningful inner life is a person who is less susceptible to the allure of manufactured desire. So the system keeps you busy, distracted, and tired. It keeps you focused on the trivial, endless pursuit of the next want, ensuring you never have the quiet space to ask the questions that truly matter. The unseen consequences have created a world of ghosts. We are living in bodies that are not our own, chasing dreams that are not our own, feeling a hunger that was implanted in us. We are haunted by the feeling of a life that is happening somewhere else, to someone else. We have been sold a beautiful, high-resolution, and utterly fake picture of what our lives should be. And we have crucified our authentic selves upon the cross of this perfect image. The factory has been so successful that its products are no longer on the shelves. They are in our heads, and they are looking out through our eyes. Escaping the desire factory is not a matter of moving off the grid or rejecting the modern world. The factory is not a physical place. It is a mental and spiritual condition. The rebellion, therefore, must be an internal one. It is a quiet, deliberate, and radical act of reclaiming the sovereignty of your own mind. It is the process of learning to distinguish the signal of your own soul from the noise of the machine. The first act of rebellion is a fast from wanting. Just as a physical fast cleanses the body, a psychic fast cleanses the psyche. This is a conscious, disciplined practice of unplugging from the primary inputs of the factory. For a set period, a day, a week, even a month, you must radically curate your informational diet. This means no social media feeds, no browsing online stores, no aspirational content like lifestyle magazines or influencer channels. You must starve the mimetic engine of its fuel. The goal is not to become a monk, but to create a space of profound silence. At first, this silence will be terrifying. You will feel bored, anxious, and phantom cravings will arise out of habit. This is the withdrawal. It is the feeling of the machine's hooks being pulled from your mind. You must sit through this discomfort. This is the sound of your own unaided consciousness beginning to reboot. The second act of rebellion, which can only happen in the silence created by the fast, is to become an archaeologist of your own desires. You must take every single "I want" that arises in your mind and place it under a magnifying glass. You must ask a series of ruthless questions. Where did this desire come from? Can I trace its origin to a specific person, advertisement, or piece of media I consumed? This is the practice of de-mimesis. For example, the sudden desire for a new home decor item can be traced back to the curated image you saw an hour ago. The desire to take up a new, trendy hobby can be linked to the people in your social circle who are now doing it. The goal is not to judge the desire as good or bad, but simply to see its architecture, to expose its mediated roots. Once you have traced its origin, you must ask the deeper question. What is the underlying human need this manufactured desire is trying to address? The desire for the luxury car is often not about transportation. It is a desire for a feeling of power, status, or freedom. The desire for the expensive skincare routine is not just about skin. It's a desire for a feeling of control over aging, a desire for self-worth.
By identifying the true, fundamental human need beneath the layer of the manufactured want, you can begin to separate the signal from the noise. You can then ask the most powerful question of all. Is this product, this lifestyle, this goal the only way or even the best way to meet this fundamental need? This process is a radical act of self-reclamation. You are taking back the power to define your own needs and to find your own authentic ways of meeting them. The third act of rebellion is to cultivate what can be called intrinsic desire. While most of our desires are mimetic, there are deeper, more authentic currents within us. These are the quiet, subtle inclinations that are not aimed at impressing an audience or acquiring a status object. They are activities and states of being that are rewarding in and of themselves. This is the desire that leads to a state of flow, where you are so absorbed in an activity that time seems to disappear. It might be the desire to solve a complex problem, to learn a musical instrument, to walk in the woods, to have a deep conversation, or to create something with your hands. These desires are often non-transactional. They don't yield a shiny object or a social media post. Their reward is the act itself. The rebellion is to consciously choose to invest your time and energy into these intrinsic pursuits, even when the factory is screaming that they are unproductive or pointless. With every hour you spend engaged in an intrinsic desire, you are strengthening your own internal signal and weakening your dependence on the external noise. You are building a life based on a foundation of authentic enjoyment, rather than a life built on the rickety scaffolding of manufactured want. This is not a one-time fix. It is a continuous, lifelong practice of vigilance and introspection. The factory is always on, and its methods are always evolving. The rebellion is a daily choice to live as a conscious creator of your own values, rather than a passive consumer of someone else's. It is the difficult, lonely, and profoundly liberating work of building a self that is not for sale. And this quiet, internal revolution is the only way to arrive at the final, most powerful truth about the nature of desire and the path to a truly free and authentic life.
You have begun the rebellion. You have fasted from the noise, excavated the roots of your desires, and started to cultivate the quiet, intrinsic joys that the factory cannot produce or sell. You have started to build a firewall around your own mind, learning to distinguish your own signal from the relentless broadcast of the machine. The constant, low-grade ache of manufactured lack has started to subside, replaced by a tentative, more grounded sense of self. But this journey of reclaiming your own wanting leads to a final, profound, and paradoxical realization that will forever change your relationship with desire itself. The ultimate truth is not that you must find your true, authentic desires. The ultimate truth is that freedom is not found in having the right desires, but in the liberation from the tyranny of desire itself. The rebellion begins with the heroic attempt to separate the fake, manufactured desires from the real, intrinsic ones. But as you go deeper, you begin to see that this distinction, while useful, is also a kind of illusion. You discover that the self is more porous, more imitative, and more conditioned than you ever imagined. Even your most cherished, intrinsic joys are shaped by your culture, your upbringing, your biology. The very idea of a pure, isolated, perfectly authentic I that exists prior to all influence begins to dissolve. You realize that the problem was never the content of your desires, but your relationship to them. The trap was the unquestioning belief that your happiness was located on the other side of any want. This is the great wisdom found at the heart of many contemplative traditions, from Stoicism to Buddhism. The source of our suffering is not that we want the wrong things, but that we are fundamentally enslaved by the very mechanism of wanting. Desire, in its raw form, is a state of lack. It is a declaration that the present moment is not enough, that you are incomplete,
and that your wholeness is contingent upon obtaining something you do not have. To live entirely in this state is to be perpetually absent from your own life, always leaning into a future that never arrives. The desire factory's greatest triumph was not to implant new desires in you, but to convince you that this state of perpetual wanting was the only way to live. The final liberation, then, is a radical shift in identity. You stop identifying with your desires and begin to identify as the consciousness that observes them. You move from being a character tossed about in the drama of your own wanting to being the audience, watching the play with a sense of compassionate detachment. When a desire arises now, whether it is for a new car or for a moment of peace, you do not immediately fuse with it. You do not automatically believe its promise that it holds the key to your happiness. Instead, you can simply notice it. Ah, you can say to yourself, here is the wanting for a new car. I see you. I feel you. I understand the cultural and psychological currents that have produced you. In this space of observation, you are finally, truly free. You are no longer compelled to act on every impulse. You are no longer a puppet. You have the power to choose. You can choose to engage with a desire not because you are enslaved by it, but because you have consciously decided that it aligns with a deeper, chosen value. You might still buy a car, but you do so from a place of conscious utility, not from a place of desperate, mimetic need. You might still pursue a goal, but you do so with a light touch, finding joy in the process itself, unattached to the outcome, because you know your wholeness does not depend on it. This is the ultimate act of unplugging from the factory. The machine's power is predicated on your unconscious identification with the desires it produces. The moment you become the observer, its hooks can find no purchase. You are in the world, but not of it. You can see the beautiful, seductive images on the screen, appreciate their artistry, understand their power, but you are no longer hypnotized by them. Look back at that quiet room and the feeling of lack that bloomed in your chest. You see it now not as a personal failure or a sign of your own insufficiency, but as an impersonal weather pattern passing through your consciousness. The ache of wanting is no longer a command. It is just a sensation, as fleeting and ownerless as the sound of rain on the window. The ultimate freedom is not getting what you want, but the freedom from needing to get what you want. It is the discovery of a profound, unshakable sense of sufficiency in the present moment. The factory's promise was always that happiness is one purchase away. The final truth is that wholeness is one thought away. The thought that separates you from the desire and allows you to rest in the quiet, spacious, and already complete reality of your own awareness. Your desires will never stop being manufactured, but you can stop buying them. You can, instead, choose to invest in the one thing that can never be sold, packaged, or mediated, the silent, sovereign, and finally free space of your own conscious self.